Welcome to the World of Ravinia Q&A episode where we'll answer some questions that came in from some of our listeners. We have the entire party here, as well as I did receive some written responses back from Derark and Sybil to a few questions that came up for them. To start us off, Miss Saul.
Hi, everyone.
So I mentioned this to you beforehand, so you get to explain this debacle. What happened between Saul and Miss Faunhopper before the podcast had started?
Okay, so this needs a little elaboration on how exactly the entire party got introduced to Miss Faunhopper. But essentially, this thing was explained to me out of character wise, but Miss Faunhopper required a certain level of charisma stats in order to have a favorable first impression with her. And pretty much everyone else in the party at the time, except for myself, had not reached that mark. So what happened was she completely disliked all the other members of the party. Now, we were also going up to her one by one, and we, as a party, hadn't met yet. So when it was my turn to meet her, I went in without knowing any of the other party interactions. But I did manage to charm her at first sight and got her to like me pretty much straight off the bat. So when it comes to further interactions with the party, Soul was pretty much the first person to go up and talk with Miss Faunhopper about anything. And Miss Faunhopper is pretty key NPC for most tasks in college, given that she's like something like an administrator, which was very convenient for us. But Miss Faunhopper, the thing about her character is that she also she's not quite completely on the books, is the best way to put it. She goes off the she does things off the book sometimes. And doesn't always keep her relations strictly professional. So when Soul needed some additional assistance that might not quite fit the lines permitted for her to give, they snuck around, and in the consequences of that, Soul and Miss Faunhopper got really close. Now later, when Zin came into the party, Zin was almost she pretty much in this situation with Miss Faunhopper, she pretty much followed Soul into things by following Soul, just by literally following her lead. So Soul took the majority of those interactions. And consequently, because Zin's charisma meets the favorable impression standard for Miss Faunhopper, and they were trying to get, I think, information or clues at the time, the situation escalated into the threesome that is so often remarked upon in our party. I think that's pretty much it, right?
Yeah, you did forget one thing though.
Oh, what is
While
it?
you did have that favorable first impression, going up and trying to get information from her was actually Sybil's idea to you, which I laughed at Sybil after the fact. I'm like, Miss Faunhopper gave you a task. Send me pretty people and I'll give you stuff. And she basically scoffed at her, and then she turns around and hands you over to her.
I don't think I actually
Within like
got
the
that part
next
explained.
session.
And pretty much thus started the corruption of Zin.
Yes.
That's how it started.
I think I forgot, but I think because of this, like me and Sybil got together and we scam her test instructor.
Yeah, because that all happened around the time when you guys were trying to do the weird gem swap with the Lord of Assassins.
And wasn't Zin the one that went with Soul to do that? Her,
Yes.
I can't remember properly, but did we succeed or fail in that? I think
He
either or would have
succeeded.
been.
We
You
succeeded, but it was very awkward.
You did just because he felt so awkward.
Oh yeah, I remember now. It's like for sake of the listeners, so Sybil had an exam to pass with her, I think, thief instructor.
It was he had a gem that you had to steal to get the most points for the test, and you could get other things to get points easier.
So Sybil
And
and I,
somehow Derark was able to crap from nonsense a fake version of that gem. I don't even know how he passed the checks. I made them ridiculous, and he got like 3 nat 20s.
so what happened was Sybil and I decided to team up for our exams. My exam is not exactly important right now. And Sybil went above and beyond. Like, she set her gaze on the top score. So when it came to the instructor, we went with the honey trap.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Soul was going full out trying to seduce this instructor, or at the very least distract him so Sybil could get the gem she needed. It very nearly failed, but Soul managed to convince the instructor that she genuinely had this massive crush on him.
Yes, and he went there thinking it was another rogue student who was going to try and use this, and he was excited about the fact that he might get to smash one of them in the face, and was very confused and put off in that moment.
Yes, and so
And can we?
the reason why he and so you see, Soul, I didn't know this at the time, but Soul's goal was to actually succeed doing this. She thought that, like, even if the gem part fails, as long as she convinced the genuinity of her feelings to this instructor, she might have like an additional NPC that she might be able to get more stuff out of. But like, so what was it? Principal Collingsworth?
It was Dusty Kiln.
No, I mean Dusty was just so afraid of Collingsworth, right? That was the principal?
Yeah, because one of the rules is faculty's not allowed to have relations with students.
Which is also
why Miss Fawnhopper was in so much trouble already, because Sybil stole her key to get into the dorms to try and get into other rooms, and found that out because it was the second violation she had on the first day of classes.
I completely forgot about that.
And it's also why Soul was managed to succeed with Miss Fawnhopper, because Miss Fawnhopper is not a new offender to this thing.
No.
But Dusty Kill was absolutely terrified of the possibility of Collinsworth discovering this, so he he successfully and very fearfully backed down from accepting Soul's confession.
Yes, the Lord of Assassins, who has bragged about his multiple thousands of successful assassinations, was terrified of having to face Collingsworth.
And of a level 1 student, I think.
Yes, that was at level 1.
I really can't believe that we actually succeeded at that. I forgot what was his reaction to discovering the switch?
When she actually brought in the gem, he looked at it thinking that was a fake, and then he took one look at it, pulled out his, and he's looking from one to the other, and that's when he spotted the difference, and he just chucked the fake one at a wall and it shattered.
Didn't we have to use mending on it because the first time Derek tried it, it broke?
Yes, then he pieced it back together with cement.
And I think I think did the other students notice that like Sybil succeeded, and what were their reactions? I think.
Well, yeah,
What was
she finished top of her class with that, and that was actually her reward for that was you guys' weekend trip to Alresent with the all paid expenses.
yeah, that was it. Okay. Oh,
I
but that was
think-
all those antics were so fun.
I think most of the group finished top of their class with their tasks, didn't we?
Yeah, most finish
Except me.
at least top 5, except for Quark.
Oh,
Because
really?
he fell asleep because he refused to actually keep himself hydrated.
That's what it was. I love Quark's first interaction with Miss
The
Bonhoeffer.
the athletically focused monk failed an endurance test.
It's a good thing I missed that one.
Okay. So yeah, that is that chaos in a nutshell. The second question: how many other of the revolving door of rogues in total, including before podcast episode 1, have there been? So the first 2 rogues in the party, none of you ever met. That was Fingers, the halfling rogue, who was being played originally by a buddy of mine who had to bail last minute. The other one was never actually made up his character, but in almost 90% of the campaigns we've ever done, he was a rogue. And I think he was leaning towards Gnome for this one. But he hadn't actually read the 5e players, so I thought there was a chance he might end up going fighter or possibly ranger once he actually read the book. And then real life changed that, and he had to bail. And then Sybil joined. From there, Sybil had to leave. Again, real life came up. I originally left her in the party for a while because she said, if things change, would be happy to come back. And unfortunately, or I guess fortunately for her, considering she left for a job she was actually excited about, and she's still at it, worked out for her in that sense. Then we added Pell, again, real life scheduling. He left after a very short time before we finally added you, Vincent, which led to part 2 of this. As a result of this trend, when is Vincent planning on leaving?
So I've been listening to this, and did I pick a cursed class? You didn't tell me this when I made my character.
Well, to be
I
fair,
don't know. You're the 5th rogue in the party.
and to be fair, we hadn't had that much luck with fighters either. Because we were supposed to have a guy named Greyhawk who was supposed to be a fighter.
Greyhawk was a barbarian.
Was he a barbarian? I thought he was going to be a fighter.
He was a barbarian, and he had to bail during first session, sort of.
Yeah. And then I think Derek was our second big frontline fighter.
Yes, and Zin came in at the exact same time. Well, no, Zin actually came in replacing the guy who was going to play the other paladin.
And then we ended up getting Soren, who was
a fighter.
I didn't know if he was multi-class, but I knew he was fighter.
No, he was fighter, and then he bailed.
And now Zin bailed.
And now Zin's bailed, yes.
So it's either you're a rogue and stealthy and are cursed, or you're frontline fighter and you're cursed and you leave.
But yeah, Vincent, anything to let us know.
Hey, you know what? As long as the party wants to keep me around, I'll stick around. I've been enjoying this game. On the rare occasions where work interferes and I can't make a session.
Well, yeah, that happens. That happens with all of us.
But
yeah, it's
me who just
when I saw that specific question come up at least 3 times, I'm like, oh, that's getting in there.
To be fair, I did ask when we were looking at me joining the game, what what class should I play? What's missing? And so this was the one.
There's a reason it was missing.
I guess so.
All right. Question 3. I'm not sure if this was directed for me or Zin, but it was, is Zin considered an undead? I took it to mean, is Zin considered an undead creature? The exact question was, is Zin an undead creature?
Well, I don't even know how to explain that, to be honest. Technically not.
To be fair, you're just a dead creature now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
in the purest sense of it, you were not. You were just resurrected. That said, there was a lingering effect attached to you. That's why you could never get rid of that last point of exhaustion.
do I get? Oh.
Do you what?
So that's the reasoning behind it.
Yes,
because I was brought back.
It was a lingering effect. Which part of that will actually be explained to start our next session. Because some things have changed.
Oh, okay.
And well, technically, now that Zin has died and is fulfilling her oath to the gatekeeper, she technically is now, I guess she would be a dual status undead celestial. In the afterlife at present.
That's the best type of celestial to be. Congratulations, Zin.
Oh, thanks.
Next one came up for Gargan, and I feel like I know the answer to this, but I want to hear his answer. How do you decide? Well, it was when and when not to message Martin.
Yeah, so you guys are referring to that
the sending.
Once a day, send Martin a message of 25 words or less. I try to use it. I guess it's that Gargan recognizes that Martin is probably a very busy, high-powered wizard, and I don't want to bother him too much. And so I try to limit it to times where it really matters, and in that he's able to articulate an answer that would be helpful and within the constraints of the sending. So I would say it's basically when when I think it's going to be helpful, but I try to be careful not to overuse it.
Yeah, that's what I kind of figured.
But
again, it got asked a lot.
But he doesn't know when a good time is to summon him.
No. I now know when not to summon him, and that's why.
When you haven't actually tested that you can do something first. Next one's for Andrakei. You've mentioned your letters with your grandfather that you receive almost monthly.
Yeah, more or less.
Has his tone softened in those? Because you started off reading them in very, very animated detail of explaining everything that he had to say.
To be fair, the last few ones, they were in my dorm when I got back. So I was able to read them privately so the rest of the group wouldn't see his reactions. But I would say the last two are a lot softer than I would say the first couple of ones. As when Andrakei started his journey, him and his grandfather didn't leave on the best of terms. His grandfather pretty much said, go make something of yourself and don't embarrass the family. I put a lot of money into getting you pretty much like get out of my house is the way Andrakia took it, and he left without a word. In the first one, he was just telling Andrakia, don't embarrass the family, prove something of yourself, here's the money that is part of your stipend. Pretty much that was it, and then the group saw his reaction, pretty much crumpling up the paper and stuffing it in his pocket. But yeah, the last few have been, I would say, are a lot softer than the reactions that you would have seen earlier. But there's still that tension. Who knows, maybe in the future we'll be able to come across and talk about that, because it's a little hard to try and do everything via just message. I don't have the ability to send a message and receive it.
Okay. The next one that came up, Vincent. As the newest player to the group, was it hard to get into the flow with the other players joining midway through a campaign?
It's not hard, but when you're going into a new campaign, you have a whole group dynamic and everything, and so it's just more of a matter of trying to figure that out, and then you don't know if you're going to like those people, and you don't know if they're going to like you and all that, so it's just kind of seeing if it's going to fit for you or not to play in.
Yeah, I think you actually fit in pretty good.
I appreciate that.
Actually, initially, I really didn't like him.
That's okay, Quark. You're a cat. You don't like anybody initially.
Okay. Next one's for Saul. And there is a follow-up to this after, so I'll let you go first. Your connection with Sybil. What exactly was it? The actual question, I took it to mean best friends or more, but the way it actually phrased out, it was sort of like, were you friends? Were you best friends? Were you someone that would consider each other like sisters, or was it something more than that?
So I think the best way to put it is that we clicked on sight. Like the characters clicked on sight. Out of character wise, I'm not so sure, but like personality of the characters we built up fit together so neatly that it was just easy to roll with the whole role play. What was going on is that like Soul is a very positive, semi-helpful, semi-selfish character. But overall she is an extroverted socialite is not the word. It's she's got along with people really well. Sybil, on the other hand, is pretty much the stereotypical rogue. She was kept to herself. She was greedy and scheming, and basically she took every opportunity to thieve whenever she could.
Yes, made me have to make the Kleptomatic 3000.
Yes. So what happened was that like Soul laid eyes on Sybil, and she was like, "That's a person in their shell. I need to bring them out of that immediately." So when it came to the meeting the party, she pretty much latched onto Sybil at first sight. Soul, by sheer force of her personality, and also because that her morals are bent enough to fit Sybil's proclivities, managed to bring Sybil out of her shell enough that she fit more with the party. That's my personal interpretation of it. Anyways, I'm thinking that like overall, Sybil as a character was a team player, but she also would have been, I think, a lot more selfish if Soul wasn't around to just push her into being part of the party, I think. Is that just my
Okay.
impression?
No, I think that'd be just one way of looking at it. But again, it gets to. So, were you best friends? Did you view her like a sister, or
It's more like it's like ride or die friends. Basically, they were gonna get into
so? Yeah, a best friend.
such a lot of trouble. Yeah,
Okay.
and they
I
managed to
got
pull each other out of situations a lot too.
yeah.
Remember
Because
that
I
time they
did.
stuck out of the dorms?
Yeah,
Or
there
was
was a
that with
few.
Zen?
But I did get the inverse of this. I got Sybil's response.
Really? Okay, let's hear it.
Sybil simply said, "We were just friends." Sybil actually hated Saul when they first met because she was such an optimistic, bubbly, and annoying person. Everything that Sybil is not, and all that changed when Saul turned out to be this wild card that would just flip on a dime. And after that, it had she stuck around longer with the campaign, she said it she wouldn't have put something romantic off the table, but it would have depended on Saul.
I think Soul would not have gone the romantic route with her. It's just that, like,
Because Saul already has too many complications in that department.
yeah, I think that like that Sybil as a character is just too serious to fool around sexually. So I think, and because of like the antics the party's getting into, as well as the fact that like she's pretty much using sex almost exclusively to get stuff out of it, it's like a transaction for her. I think if it was like, I think any romantic relationship for Soul would take a lot of really intense emotional connection.
Yeah, and it's like she said, she wouldn't have necessarily put it on the table, but she wouldn't have just outright denied it, depending on how things had progressed over the next. Well, there's been like over a year since she's been gone.
Yeah.
Next one was actually for Derek, which he did answer. How come you never tried to arrange an actual fight in the melee crystal for blood as opposed to not the illusion battles? He said, as for joining the melee for 2 blood to actual risk of death, we all thought the crystal was just a safe place to hone our skills, do a little under the table betting. When we noticed more and more of these injuries and near death experiences occurring, he actually took a step back as a character and thought, is this still what he wanted with this risk? Even thought about pulling his punches into crystal and trying to limit what he did. Derek was never out for the sheer joy of bloodshed. It was more the enjoying a good fight, a good sparring, and fought to the death when it was needed. Next, this one's for the whole group. So it was mentioned, obviously, that Zin and Drakei are married in real life. It was mentioned a few times over the course of the campaign. Did anybody else know each other beforehand, including any of the past members? I think it was, well, as I mentioned, Fingers, who never ended up joining, was somebody who I knew outside of Fantasy Grounds and the campaign, and Gimpy, who was going to be the other rogue at the beginning, I knew outside. From those that actually started in the campaign, I know me and Quark knew each other. I don't know if any of the rest of you knew each other outside of the campaign.
I did meet Greyhawk once.
I was gonna say I thought you two were in another campaign together.
There was a whole thing about like another campaign starting up. He was going to DM, and then it just fell through before the campaign even started. But that was about it. So it was like the one time that I met him.
Yeah, and then me and Quark have known each other for decades, long enough.
Yeah, it's about that.
But yeah, I think Gargan and Soul. I found both of you through the forums. Vincent, did I get to you through the forums, or was it through Discord?
It was the forums.
It was the forums as well. Okay. Hell, I think I got through Discord. But yeah, we just kind of all just came together. It's like any group for the most part when they first start out. It's almost no one knows each other. Next one's for Vincent. Have you kept in touch with your child army that you started?
I haven't had the chance to yet. In fact, I was really trying to start up another child army, but the opportunity didn't come in the last town we were in.
Yeah. Okay. Next one's for Gargan. There. Sec. Stupid mouse scrolled up on me. Here we go. How many times will you ask if something is Fey related to try and get your bonus, or if when it is so clearly not remotely possibly Fey related?
You can't knock a guy for trying. And you never know, Fays are mysterious creatures and work in mysterious ways. And maybe the guy who plays Gargon isn't particularly bright. But so yeah, I'm gonna say I'm probably gonna do it
A lot.
a lot, because I need all the help I can get.
But yeah, that one came up so many times. I was like, I don't know. I'm asking you because I'm curious.
It's just every once in a while it may be for the chuckle, but
well, yeah, it's like you see a rock. Is it Fey?
If this is a Fey rock, I get a bonus. I just want to remind you.
Hey, if I thought I could get away with it, I would ask if more things were woodworking related.
Yeah. Also, the other reason I asked before is because I have a special die for that circumstance, right? And so in other words, one would be just roll it and count on somebody remembering that that would be there or whatever. But I have one that if it is and I roll it, the bonus is already in there.
Yeah.
And so that's why typically I'll ask before. But yeah, no, it's.
I just always thought you were kind of paranoid about Faye.
No, not at all.
No, to be fair, you were at the beginning because the squirrels ended up being Fey and tried to kill you.
Oh my god, that was horrifying.
And that's the one time I probably didn't ask.
Yeah, they just turn around. They have viper heads. They have what?
yeah. I had no clue they were Fey, and I'm sure I didn't ask.
The GM's just messing with you. Every time you don't ask is when they are.
That's right.
All right. Next one is for Quark. Did you know in advance that your character was going to change into a kitty? And if you knew ahead of time that it was going to be permanent when you ate the fruit?
Actually, initially I had no idea whatsoever. I just purchased the fruit because I thought I was just getting into the spirit of the festival. And once I found out how much it was, I just got really stubborn about it. So I'm like, I'm going to purchase this fruit and I'm going to use it. And consequences be damned.
I think
Yeah.
that's just our party's motto at this point.
It
Consequences
really
be
is.
damned.
So what the listeners probably don't know, but I think most of the characters do, is that I was pretty much planning on sabotaging that and switching that fruit for a mundane fruit without you knowing it. And it was mostly because I didn't want you to die. And I secretly,
That was around the time you really got into the paranoid that anything Fey is evil.
Well, it didn't help that his instructor pretty much said that.
So I sort of created like this over under percentage of like, if the chance of this killing him is this percent, I'm gonna basically pull the plug without them ever knowing. And it was literally like, like within like in other words, that the chance of dying was like a low enough percentage that that I decided not to do it. And sometimes I wonder, would you rather I did in retrospect, but I think the cat thing's working out for you pretty well.
Yeah,
But
and
I
initially I found out it was supposed to be temporary. The reason why it became permanent is because I failed to save.
but I
By
came
one.
Oh.
I came so
By
close
one.
to I came so close to switching that fruit out.
My favorite thing now is that the GM knows that if they want to kill all of us off, just give us food because we don't question it. We'll be like, sure, I'll try some, and then dead.
I like that mods.
I mean, you guys literally, somebody took a shot called "You Die" from a random spin the wheel. You drink whatever it says.
That was Zin, wasn't it?
And then she died.
She passed out on the floor.
Yeah.
And we also, she died with her.
Zin.
She also died with her crit fail pill.
Yeah.
It was a delayed death shot.
Oh.
When it comes to alcohol, it's always overblown, though.
Oh yeah, and I drank
You
that
guys
like
do not understand moderation at all.
oh, and that spicy rum or whatever that I drank and nearly killed
Literally,
Drake.
it was like stuffed with pepper.
Yep. And he bought a whole bottle to bring with him. Yeah, I remember that.
You can't go wrong with spicy rum.
After drinking that, I think I had like 2 levels of exhaustion the next day.
Oh yeah, because you lost one from the amount of damage you took with it coming back up. It like did enough damage from you hurling that it actually caused a point of exhaustion.
I think the best part, the people who are supposed to be holy are probably the biggest drinkers in the party.
Well, now that Gerard's gone, yeah.
Yeah. Like that was our like rivalry, was to try and out drink Derek. And then he left and we just kept the memory alive.
Yeah, we kind of miss him.
Yeah. Next one's for Zin. Does your oath limit your actions at all? If so, do you fear that you might end up breaking it, especially with all your recent behavior of stealing and such?
I don't think like so Zin died and was trying to like be the perfect paladin and heal everybody and cause more good than harm and everything else. And I think once she took the oath of the Reaper, it kind of put everything into perspective. I think she was more or less concerned with being supportive to her fellow classmates and wanted to get into a little bit more mischief instead of being the goody goody. So she pretty much got like a second chance at life to kind of like fulfill what she wanted to do. I wasn't really worried about like how I was gonna fulfill the Oath of the Reaper. I was a little bit worried about it near the end, but unfortunately, due to personal matters, I did
Yeah.
have to step away. I
Yeah,
was actually, yeah,
there was nothing in your oath that would have given you like nothing about behaving against lawful or good that would have restricted you in that sense from the oath itself. So
yeah. So it was more or less like, I don't know, eventually I was thinking of like asking more questions on the oath, like what exactly it entailed, because I kind of just like jumped for it.
yeah. The funny thing is you had a book on you that you had like another 7 hours to finish reading that would have given you some of those answers.
Yeah, which, yeah.
Um,
But yeah, I don't know. It was interesting, and it was also my first like campaign, right? So this
yeah.
is the first time I've ever been involved in D&D, and playing online is a little bit different. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was just a whole different ball game, so it was kind of hard for me to kind of speak up. So, but I had fun for the
Yeah.
most part.
You got there.
I got there eventually.
Yeah. Next one's for the group, and this was about 8 different questions, and I pulled them into one and tried to give a concise idea behind what I think the questions were asking. So, what was your thought process into what classes you chose to play? Uh, do any of you have any plans of multi-classing in the future? How did you go about choosing what skills you were going to focus on for your study and your skills labs time?
Hmm.
Let's
Okay,
start at the top.
Right? Let's all talk at once.
All right, I can start.
Okay.
So, as far as choosing what type of wizard to become, I guess Gargan's a little bit of a dichotomy where he's super careful, but loves to blow shit up. And when he discovered the ability to sculpt spells and be able to blow shit up and not hurt his friends, that was just a such a strong lure. And so that really that just that piece of it was a strong pull to that. As far as the choices for classes, so my strategy was as I was noticing that if you're schooling in multiple things, it takes longer for each one of them, obviously, to reach some sort of level. And so my strategy was to put all my chips into one basket so that I could get a skill that I could then use, um, and then um, and then move to another one instead of getting them all sort of you know after some longer time. So I think that answers the questions, I believe.
I guess I'll go next.
Okay.
They're asking like our character class, like why we
Yeah,
chose
what
being like
what
more.
made you decide to choose cleric, basically, or something to that effect, and then like the skills that you had listed as like these are the classes you're taking for your skills labs. What made you decide the like how to focus on that? Like, was it story based? Was it just what the party was missing? Things of that nature.
So the reason I became a cleric is mostly because um, this is my first campaign, and I never played D&D. And we were at the time when we were talking about making my character, we didn't have Zen, and I think we didn't know what class Soul was going to be. So we were in desperate need of a healer, and I was like, okay, what's the easiest healer class to do? Cleric. And I was happy about the fact that I can go frontline if I really need to. So that's why I chose the cleric class. For school skills classes, most of them were chosen um, based on skills I already had or skills that I wanted to improve on. When we first did it, it was kind of a rush job. The ones that I'm picking later, once I'm done these, are going to be more strategic towards what's going to be best for moving forward. I think I picked, was it finesse weapon or longsword or something like that? Is one of
Yeah,
my.
you started focusing on another weapon proficiency. I can't remember what. They don't have the game open.
I'm pretty sure it was like longsword or something like that.
I think it might have been longsword.
Just
Because
because.
you have your mace, you had some bludgeoning weapons, and it was easier to pick a single martial weapon to get trained faster than training on all martial weapons, which would have taken
Yeah.
hundreds of
Because
hours.
most of the shops that we went to, they had a longsword martial weapon of some sort, which is better than my mace, and they didn't have any simple weapon for me to use that would have been proficient for me.
Yeah.
So that's why I did it like that. For multi-classing, um, right now it's not a thing, but who knows if I'd probably be more or less play it by ear of what happens with the party, because you never know. I could right now just want to be a cleric, but because we're lacking somewhere and we need extra power for whatever reason, I could end up multi-classing. But I'm happy with just being a cleric right now.
All right, I'll go next. So for me, it was a more of a fundamental choice. I've been playing D&D and role-playing games off and on for a good 30, 35 years. I'm always the healer class, or when I don't need to be a healer class, I'm a ranged sniper type. I wanted to be a frontline character this time, and I wanted to keep the mechanics of my character as simple as possible. So I basically chose a monk. I generally like to play neutral characters, so being a goblin monk was convenient. And as for will I multiclass? No. If I need to make adjustments to my character, it's going to be only through skills at this point.
Okay. Saul?
Sorry, I was looking at my phone. I got a message from someone. What was the question?
What was it that made you decide to be a bard, and do you have any plans to multi-class, and what has been your decision-making process for what classes you took for your skills lab hours?
Okay. So the reason why I chose to be a bard is that, so I came into the party a little later than the main group. I actually was, I think, an addition. Was I?
I think you actually joined at
It was just a little
session
later,
2.
but yeah, I think it was just a little later, but it was still later.
Yeah.
So I knew going in what the party composition was pretty much already set. And when it comes to when I play D&D, I like being a team player. And I like filling in roles that haven't been taken up yet. In particular, I prefer just being useful to the party overall. This also meshed really well with the fact that I've never played Barb before. I find that playing new classes is pretty fun because now you have to think about new things and new ways to build up your character. So, and then when I had my stats roll, they turned up pretty high. I
Yeah, yours were.
yeah. So I don't have a single negative stat. I have a 0 stat, but I don't have negative stats. And that means that, like, my character can be pretty versatile. At the very least, I'm not going to get penalized for any sort of role. And this meshes really well with the bard's jack and all trade trait. So then I started thinking about, okay, so what does the party need next? And as the party went through the adventure, I just kept thinking, okay, maybe someone needs to be able to do this, or do this, or do this, and it's just constantly thinking about things that come up. It's also it's how I pretty much got stuck driving the cart all the time.
Yeah, because you're the one training to do it.
Yep. But it also does mean that, like, for certain things I'm like exceptional at it, but for other things I'm also like pretty average. Which is good, because what the point of Soul having these little information things is mostly to be an assist to when someone else needs to make the rule, or if no one has the ability at all, to have at least a little bit of a bonus to a normal roll. And eventually it just got to the point where that, like, Soul was pretty much able to help the party with a little bit of everything. Which is a lot of coincidence, but that it really built up to a character that I just did not expect to be as awesome as she was. I expected her to fail for certain things at the beginning of the whole campaign.
Okay. Vincent?
Yeah, so when I was joining the party, I asked, what was missing, and a lot like Soul, I was like, okay, they didn't have a rogue. So then I looked at the rogue class. I've never played rogue before, so I went with the arcane trickster. I don't think I'd multi-class. I don't even know if there would be a viable way to do that. But yeah.
Okay. Zin, did you I guess you already kind of provided yours when we asked about your decision about your oath, didn't you?
Yeah, kind of. I kind of picked Paladin probably because like I was researching like what is the most easiest D&D character, because again, first campaign ever being a part of. Knowing what I know now probably wouldn't have been my first choice. But yeah, wasn't gonna multi-class, was just gonna stick with the Paladin.
Yeah, I think with the original group when you joined, it kind of filled all the boxes that were missing in one.
Yeah, pretty much. I think that you guys needed one more healer, I think Andrea Guy said. So then I was like, okay, I'll be a Paladin, and then yeah. Wasn't the greatest fix, but it worked.
Good thing about
Okay.
paladins is they can be as simple or as complex as you want them to be.
I think mine was just like trying to figure out like what attitude I wanted Zin to have versus what I am like in real life. Like in real life, I'm bubbly. I love talking. Like I'm a very personal person, but it was hard for me to kind of get that to come through Zin being a paladin and being the goody goody. You know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
just, yeah.
I will say also this, for being your first character, your first D&D game ever, Paladin is not an easy class to start with.
Definitely not. I would have liked to at least like started with maybe like a barbarian or something. Went from there, but nonetheless, it was a way to dip my toe, and yeah, I enjoyed it.
Okay. And I did get Derark's response to this as well. Once he decided to go with dwarf, he was going fighter all the way. There was never a question in his mind after that. As for the skills, he tried to focus on things that fit his backstory. So, considering that he had in his backstory, he had worked in the mines as required of all noble children of the Dwarven Kingdom. Learning a craft that focused on using the materials found in mines pushed him to go into learning about smithing tools and masonry. Other than that, he just spread his stuff out, trying to focus on things that would just be useful for survival. Or that. Next, Vincent. How far do you pre-plan your little side adventures?
I don't. They're off the top of my head, and I imagine it annoys everybody in the party when I do that. There's often times where after the game, I think, oh man, I missed so many opportunities.
I personally enjoy the side quests of all the rogues because they all seem to do that from time to time with every single one that have actually played.
Yeah, all 3 of them that were in this campaign had led to some sort of.
Which you haven't used the Kleptotron 5000 like forever.
Yeah.
I think after Pell left, that was the last time.
No, I'm pretty sure Vincent's used it once or twice, but not as often.
Yeah, my character is chaotic though, so that's my excuse.
Yeah. Next one is for the party. I don't know. I'm trying to remember if this was revealed or not, and somebody might have just missed it from the episode. Did anybody figure out what Tiny's secret was?
Tiny.
Felix the Tiny, the half giant.
Isn't that Wilda's husband or something?
Yeah.
The librarian's husband.
Oh god, I can't even remember.
Her name is like Ginny, and
Ginny.
he's the big guard. She made the pie.
Yeah.
But
I don't think we did.
His secret.
I think we might have dropped the plot line, focusing on our own things.
Yeah, I think I was trying to remember if you guys did figure it out or not. It's honestly, it's at any point in any session, it probably could have been something you found out without even really trying in less than 5 minutes. So I will answer it here. Do you guys remember when you had your little secret meeting with Tiny, trying to convince him to go to the meeting? I don't know if it was to go to the meeting with Tobias or just trying to see if he would keep an eye on the people that were staying with Lord Kragel's troops.
I think we found out that he had to accompany Lord Kragel. That's why we went and asked him.
Yeah. And he was basically whittling a tree trunk in his hand.
That part I remember.
So some of the listeners had already figured this out from that. He was trying to take a large chunk of a tree trunk and whittle it down. He kept looking, saying, "Oh, that's too big," and just keep whittling it down to make a little toy figure for his firstborn, which is now on its way.
Oh, that's adorable.
Well, congratulations to the listeners who picked up on that. I, for one, am impressed.
You pay attention way more than the party does.
To be fair, they were probably just listening to the episode. I gave you guys like six points of trying to focus in on what he had in his hands. I think most of them caught on to that clue where you guys were focused on getting clues about your story.
So I think it's because we were more focused on Lord Kragel.
Yeah.
And doing all that if it was any other time, we might have caught it.
And tied directly in from that one, the next question, mentioned specifically Tuin, Drakei, and Gargan, but I guess it could go to basically any of you as well. how do you handle the idea of what to do next in the game when you miss certain knowledge checks? Because I think I had you all roll like insight or stuff like that, and every one of you flubbed the roll when you were talking to Tiny.
Like if it's something that I don't feel is that important, I don't panic about it. I'm like, oh, one of the smarter characters will get it. It's fine. Or if I'm like really focused on trying to do something, I'm like, oh no, no, no.
I pretty much agree with you on Drakei. It's more like if it's not important enough, it can be let go. If it is important enough, I think we just attack the problem from another different angle. I mean, we've gotten information and key items in unconventional ways before, so it's not like we have to just give up the first straightforward way.
And I find like key ones that we've been able to figure out pretty well as a group.
We'll find out. There's a few ones at the end that I saved that may be spoilers for things to come, but I feel like some of the players, if not their characters, have figured out. Maybe but their characters have not.
Just remind me, did you mention to us at some point that Tiny was expecting a kid?
I can't remember because
I'll tell you
Guinea
why.
wasn't there when you guys got back from vacation.
I feel like
So
you
I don't-
said that
I
Wilda
couldn't-
was
I-
like glowing.
I
or
couldn't
something.
remember if I mentioned it, but that's why I said the person who sent that question could have sent it before they listened to the episode where it was mentioned, or
Because although I don't remember specifically, I do remember being very concerned for Ginny's health after learning that they were pregnant.
Yeah, because weren't you-
Tiny's so enormous and she's so small.
wasn't she supposed to be somewhere and you were trying to talk to her and she was just like gone one day?
From the library. Me.
yeah, that's why I said I couldn't remember if it actually was mentioned because I thought
think you did. I think you did.
I
'cause
think when you
remember,
first
like,
found
how's
out
she
they
gonna
were
pull it off?
married, a few of you also had that. Wait, what? the halfling and the half giant couple.
Yes.
The next one was for Sybil, and it also came along these lines. But I'm curious if anybody else had cut onto this or remembered it. This would probably go back to a while back. I feel like the last time that anything related to the checks for this would have been back at like when we recorded episode 6, and episode 28 will be up tonight. Was Lord Collingsworth your father or maybe grandpa? With all his odd little looks and weird reactions whenever you were around. Sybil's reaction was, I do not recall that much. Sybil was not aware if that was true. And I feel like a few of these came up even after she left the campaign.
I don't know if he was her father, but there was some sort of connection. Like, it did seem he kind of doted on her a lot more than you would expect.
That part I do remember.
Yeah, it's this. As far as she knew, she had no idea what it was. And yeah, it never really got to come out whatever the reason or cause was for that. But again, it gets down to those, how do you play off when these checks are missed? That same idea that, because without trying to metagame at least. Next one was for the party. Your actions seem a bit more reactive in the moment. Are there ever any long-term plans or pre-planned trips or storylines or quests that you yourselves have put together or have in the works?
I feel like we just play it by ear. I think the only one where we were really about doing something was when Lord Craggle was around, and we were tasked with finding out what the heck was going on with them showing up and why you brought such a big army. But for the most part, I feel like we just try and find missions, go to class. If something big happens, then we focus on that. But I don't know if we really sat down and discussed an angle.
Okay.
I'll say that. Go ahead, Cork.
Personally, I'm currently worried about my mom because she's putting herself in too much danger. So if her quest goes on too much longer, I may go out and try to find her. I do want to reconnect with the Church of the Grand Trader because I haven't been tithing them recently, so I'm a little worried about that. Aside from that, my main focus is trying to keep the rest of these idiots alive.
I'll say, because I don't know exactly how long this campaign goes, if it goes beyond college years. So my character's long-term plan is setting up little groups in different towns to set up his own little black market underground thieving rings. But we'll see how well that goes if the GM allows it.
Well, consider you guys have about give or take a month and a half left in your freshman year before the summer break. It will definitely go past freshman year.
And if we're talking about character personal goal, Indragi Ice would probably just be trying to make a name for himself because of his upbringing of pretty much being overlooked his entire life and seen as something to not even talk about or care about.
Yeah, and since we're playing through college years, I guess how many college people actually plan very far beyond just getting past their current year?
That's something you could probably ask around. A few of the faculty are former students or have taken up jobs in various areas around not too far from the college.
Yeah, the teacher that does assassinations really caught my attention.
Okay.
Mostly, we're happy there's just no student debt.
That we know of.
True that.
Now, Gargan's tuition is paid for by Martin. Quark's tuition is paid for by his parents. Saul is here via the Bank of Tobias.
Yep.
Vincent, I haven't actually gone through how you got in here yet.
He snuck in.
Zin was here paid for by the last money left of
Her adopted
her
family.
and Derark's family. And Andrakiai's grandfather paid for freshman year, but we'll see what happens for sophomore year. Next question was for Gargan. How come you never use the dragon breath smell for anything other than the fire element?
That's a good question.
Did you not know you could?
I'm certainly aware that I could use other things, and but it just seemed that it would work against whatever I was using against. So yeah, no reason. I guess I like fire.
I can't believe someone's really asking why is a wizard wanting to constantly cast fire?
But when there were
Yeah.
other options, like they could do lightning, they could do acid, they could do other stuff
Yeah.
with the
Other than
exact
that-
same damage.
Other than that one time where things were resistant to fire, it's been pretty useful.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah, I think I may have used something non-fire once, possibly, I think. But yeah, no, I like fire. I guarantee you, when we level up, Fireball is going to be one of them. So,
Yeah.
no surprise there.
I can't wait for that first to go off and he accidentally kills half the party.
Well, again, that's what Sculpt Spells is for. So,
Yeah, he can choose not to hit party members that are in the blast.
yeah, that combination just
The
love it.
ones he likes, anyways.
That's right.
Yeah. Next one was for Sybil, and she did provide an answer. So was getting all the street orphans into the church something that was pre-planned before you left the campaign? She stated that it was not pre-planned. I will state that this was sort of a side effect of her leading the campaign because those children, along with Marissa, were already written and tied into other story elements that went beyond her story. So in order to keep them connected to the party in some way, I kind of put them there because of the connection that Andrakii had to the church and the children.
This is what I get for middling.
Next one's for Quark. What do you think your mother is hiding from you?
Honestly,
There
probably
was a
quite
few
a bit.
There was a few different ways this got asked, but nobody has actually figured out what the answer is. They were just curious themselves and to see if you knew.
Well, I mean, there's definitely a few things, but I know my mom loves me, so she'll tell me when she needs to tell me. That's the short answer. Um, I guess long answer is yeah, I do know there's something there. I have like a couple of like hints as to what it might be, but in terms of like something specific, I don't really know.
Okay. All right, we're getting near the end here. Saul
Yeah.
and the others can chime in if they have any ideas. What do you think happened to Tobias?
Okay,
Ooh.
Tobias. I think the listeners have a pretty good idea of what Tobias is like at this point. Do you think I need to elaborate on that?
So, with Tobias going missing basically after your meeting where he trapped you in the zone of lies.
No,
And
I
then that
mean,
was the last time anyone at the college has seen him. So, it's been almost 3 months.
no, I get that, but I mean, like, they have a handle on his personality by now, I think. Right? I don't have to.
Some of them have chimed in with their guesses, but some of them are right out there. Some of them were legitimately just asking, but wondering if you actually knew because he was basically your master, or if anyone else in the party had put together anything.
Minville, I'm asking if I need to elaborate to give lore about what Tobias is like, so that the listeners can understand what's going on. So do you think the listeners have enough of a Tobias personality that I don't have to expand on him too much?
I think they've definitely got a decent chunk of what Tobias is like.
Okay. Then, so like, Tobias is like he's both a conspiracy theorist and also successful conspiracy theorist. I mean, there are duds, obviously. You don't follow every lead you get and then succeed with every lead you get. But if there's something suspicious going on, he's probably going to try to follow the trail. Um, I think, and I think Soul has suspicions, but has no confirmation whatsoever. So they're just suspicions that Tobias stumbled upon something big enough that he's completely out of contact. He disappeared because it's more dangerous to pop up right now. And that's the current suspicion both I and Soul have, but we have absolutely no actual evidence for it. It's all circumstantial.
Okay.
I personally think he's playing a double agent.
Nah,
I think
Soul,
that he's advanced to a higher plane after
Soul,
getting enlightenment.
No, I'm just saying,
Soul-
like, in Drake, I think that he might be playing the double agent.
There is a part 2 to this question that came up. Clark, I think you might be the only one that figured it out at one point, although your character does not know the full details of what you figured out yourself. Considering what you saw wasn't there.
If this was
If you
from quite a
recall.
while ago, I probably
so
don't fully
I will
recall.
chime in with what the question for the group was, and it's something that Quark mentioned to me, and it's something that I told him you actually don't see that, although you passed a check that was there, so you know something in the back of your mind, but not that because you don't actually see it. Did anyone realize that Tobias's last name, Van Letherin, is the same one that Saul was told her father's last name is? And Quark, you had figured that out when you said you looked at the list of faculty in the guidebook.
Right.
And I said, when you look there, it just says the name Tobias now. He has no last name showing up.
Yeah, I remember that.
I just hadn't updated the file.
To be fair, I think during that part, me and Zin were not here for that part of the game. But yes, that does seem very suspicious.
So yeah, I knew you had mentioned that immediately after the session you messaged me and said that, and I'm like,
Yeah.
You while it might say that in the book because I simply couldn't go and erase the file on every place that it was listed, you don't see it.
And to be fair, Drake is very oblivious to subtle things sometimes, so he probably would not have caught on to that.
And yeah, I compartmentalized it perfectly fine.
Yeah. Had Saul figured that out? Or sorry. Saul, not your character, had you figured any of that out?
No. I'm only good at putting clues together when they're put like when I was doing the Rallos situation thing, all of
Yeah.
it was being done at once. So I was able to figure out that my other identity was being possessed essentially at that time.
Yeah.
Because it was all self-contained. But like when it comes to like pieces between sessions, I am actually really bad at putting. They're just too far apart for me to pull together.
Okay. Well, yeah, because it was at that same session when you talked to your mom and she finally told you what your father's name was.
Yeah, so like I'm a little distracted. My focus is elsewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that all happened during the winter break, didn't it?
Yes, that was the week after the solstice when her and Vincent and Quark went to Misty Oak, and then you all went back to investigate.
Okay. Yeah, I think me and Zin had to miss out on that session for whatever
Okay.
reason. So that's why I'm like, what are you guys talking about?
Well, that's why I try and recap some stuff, but I don't want to get into. I couldn't exactly get into the specifics of that because everybody made a check to see if they recognized this name, and the only one that even got close to the check they needed was Quark, and it was just that something in the back of his mind stuck that he's heard that name somewhere. No one else has ever. It's like they've never even heard that name uttered in their entire life. And the final question: has the group made any plans for what they'll be doing during their summer break time in game?
Oh, that's
I mean, you have 4 months of summer break, so
In Drakeeye, if he can go back, he'd probably go back to his grandfather's.
yeah, that'll
Which-
burn 2 months of your time, 1 month traveling each way. So
Yeah. That's why he wasn't able to go during winter break. He was too short. I wouldn't have been able to make it back in time.
Oh wait,
Yeah.
this is an individual thing?
Well, it's yeah. What are your plans? Like, some of you may keep together as groups. Some of you may opt to just stay at the college. Some of you may opt to just go and seek some work, and we'll go through a few things of what you do in some of that time. We definitely will not be playing out 4 months worth of time in between the two. We'll probably wrap that up in like 3 or 4, maybe 5 sessions tops, unless you guys really get into something when you're all back together. Of something that you want to look into because of things you've learned on your own.
So Soul can say attempt to figure out the criminal underbelly of Alrazin, and that'd be fine for a summer vacation.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. I'll think about it. I think I want to think about what we're gonna do, what I'm gonna be doing during summer
Yeah,
vacation.
you guys are about 5 to 6 weeks away from 5 to 6 weeks in game away from the end of semester.
Personally, if my
And-
mom's not back, I'm going to try and find her.
So, do you want to try to take over the underground crime syndicate?
So like, she's primarily concerned with things like white collar crime, thieves, thefts, and non-violent stuff. So she'd probably do as much she could to dig into that stuff in Alrizon. But I'm not 100% certain that's what I'll do during the actual summer vacation. I need to think about, because I want, the thing is, I want Soul to go off on her own for a little bit. Even if it's just like only part of the vacation, I want her to do that. It's just, she's been with the party a lot, and I feel like she should do her own stuff for a little while.
That's kind of my thing with Drakeeye as well. Why I want him to go back. He's going to go alone back to his grandfather's. Because during the whole winter thing, you guys all were able to go away. He was stuck at the college, pretty much, with
yeah.
2 other people?
Yeah. Well, it's Gargan, I think, was there because, again, his is
Like the same
about
distance.
20, 25 days travel to get to the village where Martin's Tower is.
Yeah, and I think you said it was only me and Gargan that are out that way. So it would be...
You're the only two that are from originally south of the wall.
Yeah.
Vincent is also a ways out, about 15 to 18 days if he was going to go home.
Yeah, Vincent will do everything he can to not go home.
I kind of figured that'd be the answer. Quark, yeah, I figured you will have to see how things go with your mom when the term ends. And then we'll
if she's
see.
back, I might actually follow in Drakeeye.
Oh, that would be interesting. Introducing Quark to your granddad.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure whatever hair he has left in his head would fall out. No, I should bring Borka along.
Oh God. Yeah, I guess there's a few
You'd never be
NPCs
lonely.
y'all could follow up with that you haven't been in touch with recently since you guys got back.
Yeah, there was a few things that came up before we left. Yeah, you are correct. We were like, oh no, the owl bears is what we want to do.
Yeah, one of those actually is how we start the session, and that's with, remember, Andrake, before we left, I said there's one thing that we're going to cover as you're leaving the prayer hall.
Oh, I thought it's because I was still in the prayer hall, and you asked me if while we were in the prayer hall if I had 5 minutes. I was like, yeah, probably not. It would have to wait until the next session.
Okay, yeah, that's what happens there is actually going to be how we start the session.
Okay. So prepare myself for some major
Yes.
stuff.
And that was the final question. All right, everybody. I'm glad y'all could make it. Maybe sometime down the road we'll do another one of these if any more bizarre questions come up from in the mailbox.
Oh, definitely if we make it to episode 50.
Well, one sec. I do need to share one thing into the chat right now. Oh, wow. This might actually be going higher and faster than the normal podcast. But where is share? Shareable link. Okay. Just going to drop this in the Discord for y'all. So yeah, looking at the numbers, we are already up over 15 subs for the YouTube version of the podcast.
Wow. That's not bad.
Now, mind you, we're up around 55 to 65, depending on the platform and where my math is and if I'm doing it right between the different places the podcast. Audio only is up, but yeah.
That's really cool.
That's exciting.
Now, that said, a bunch of people did skip a large portion of the YouTube version. I think mainly when they started hearing stuff about, at the end of it, I forgot to cut off about us discussing when the next session would be, and we were like in summer, and they're looking at a post that just came up in October. But since we got to the most recent, like, couple of episodes, basically from the gem antics that you guys got into in Alrezen there with Vincent, there's been at around 10 to 30 views on each episode.
So we need more chaos.
We what?
So we need more chaos.
Give the people what they want. I don't know.
Right.
I'm just. I think it's.
I don't
also
want to give you a headache, though. So.
I think they've also figured out, like, when I was posting some of these to get us caught up, I was posting like 6 episodes in a day, and then the next, like, 3 days later, another 4 episodes to get us caught up, and they've realized now that we're up to getting like 1 episode released each time.
Yeah. And about the chaos, to be fair, anytime we have, oh, you guys get to go away, or some sort of festival event, something major happens. That is pure chaos.
All right. I'm going to kill the recording there because I'm going to have to edit some of this out already anyway.